Elsa, do you remember that day when it was raining cats and dogs and I just picked you up off the street? As a kid, I eventually learned that raining cats and dogs doesn't literally mean raining domestic pets from the sky. It means that it's just raining really hard. The phrase raining cats and dogs is called an idiom. According to a simple Google search, idiom is defined as
a group of words established by usage as having a meaning not deductible from those of the individual words.
So in other words, idioms are interesting phrases that are necessarily not to be taken literally because they mean something much deeper, aka a figure of speech. As I kept hearing idioms, I eventually grew accustomed to what they meant as they matched the social situation of the time. However, there were some idioms I didn't quite understand until I was awakened to the realities of the outside world. So let's get into it and search them up on this week's High Fives.
If you use a commodity or resource carefully and without extravagance, you will never be in need.
This idiom basically says to be frugal or non-wasteful saves you the hassle of needing something in the future. A good example to explain this idiom is the resource of time and money. Money becomes useful later on if you save it and don't spend it. Time saved is an indispensable resource that breeds productivity and efficiency. These examples, among others, are the makings of a wise and successful young adult. As kids, you don't fully grasp this concept because you were never in full control of your time and money. So for me growing up, this didn't come naturally, and it definitely came with some hard-earned lessons and practice.
Cost of an arm and a leg means that something is extremely expensive.
As a kid, you don't really know what expensive is unless someone talks about it. You don't know for yourself because the money that was gifted or given to you doesn't seem like much harm to the effort that was put in to give you said profit. So when you're finally adulting, you realize that to cost an arm and a leg doesn't really refer to your parental sponsors anymore. It's talking about you. The hard-earned money that you earned is likely going somewhere where it's needed most, and you can definitely feel it. For example, student loans, repairing your used car, taxes. These are things you don't necessarily want to spend your money on, but you have to. This is what makes it feel like you're losing an arm and a leg to give up something that you are probably reluctant to give up. This is what makes you feel like you're being torn apart, or at least I guess that's what things feel like depending on its significance.
A thing or person whose sudden but brief success is not repeated or repeatable.
This one basically means that something is good at first, but then ultimately it fails. Growing up, we have huge expectations of what success is. We go to school, we pay our dues, we get the crush, we get the job. Life is all sunshine and rainbows, right? Not necessarily. Perhaps some things happen down the line and your plans change. You drop out, you have fines, you break up, you get laid off. What was once promising now looks pretty tragic. A flash in the pan might mean things look pretty cool and professional, but on the inside, you just burned the whole entire steak, or it's still mooing. In the adult world, I had to be more conscious of these setbacks and learn how to anticipate them. In time, I eventually learned to have multiple solutions ready in the face of setbacks.
Stiff upper lip displays fortitude in the face of adversity, or exercises great self-restraint in the expression of emotion.
Life is hard to the point where inevitably it builds character. There were so many times that I cried and stressed that I wondered, what the heck is going on? My natural outlet in these times of distress were full of emotion. I understand that there's a time for catharsis, and it's healthy to vent pent-up emotions. And I'm not saying stuff like conceal, don't feel. But in time, I learned that self-restraint is not always encouraged, but is sometimes necessary, not for yourself, but for others. For example, as a leader, you might need to show some resolve and perseverance in times of crisis because people will look to you for help and guidance. Sure, you're not perfect, but does going on a rampage and crying really help solve the problem? For you, probably, because it feels good, but for others, not so much. Another example, as an older person in the family, particularly an Asian household because of the hierarchy system, you must be a good role model for your younger siblings because they look up to you. You don't even have to be a leader or an older person in the hierarchy to know that showing a stiff upper lip can help improve the situation. So keep on trudging, because whether you are aware of it or not, people are looking up to you and they trust you.
Including features or qualities that are not appealing or attractive.
This basically means that although there is bad, there's also something particularly good, and vice versa. Another similar phrase would be, I'm not perfect. As a kid, I always thought that I had to be the best. I had to grow up, be a doctor, I had to have a girlfriend, I had to have a job, I had to have a great life. But as kids, we were naive, innocent, passionate. We were ready to take on life. Yet we didn't realize that there were hurdles in the way that were sometimes bigger than us. But growing up, you slowly learn to appreciate the hardships and the grit that you had because it made you who you are today. You should honestly feel proud that you were able to overcome this or overcome that. For me, I wouldn't have made it this far if it weren't for a little stumbling. And frankly, I'm still stumbling. And yet, the grace of life keeps on going. Life is beautiful because it's not perfect. We are not made or destined to be perfect. We have flaws, and that's what makes us unique. I'm not perfect. I'm just human. So get up after you fall, warts and all.
오늘은 좋은 날이야 치는 더 기지개 펴 이런 기분 오랜만이야 상쾌해